and there is hope. I had no hope when I came in here because I didn't know that I could have a solution to my anorexia, bulimia, and overeating. And it was in Gray Sheet, because of the defined abstinence, that I got a solution to the anorexia, the bulimia, and overeating. Because when you said I could eyeball my food, that gave me permission to undereat. And I was so brazen enough to, when I would go out with people in the other rooms, I'd push some of my food over onto their plates because I judged that they weren't getting enough to eat. And somebody accused me of trying to kill them at a lunch one day, and she was serious. And so Gray Sheet got me to a level of honesty I had never been at. In the 13, 14 years I had been in the rooms of OA and OA How, I came in anorexic and bulimic. I didn't think I had a problem. I didn't want what they had. I just wanted to learn how to twix my weight. That was my goal. And I would tell my psychiatrist that I'm eating healthy, I'm going to the gym several hours a day, and I was also smoking a pack of cigarettes a day too, but I was healthy. And I'm a nurse by profession for almost 50 years. That shows you how much I know. And he said I had a disease that he couldn't cure. And we used to use an expression in Los Angeles, he was my Eskimo into the 12-step programs. And when I came into Gray Sheet in 1997, I got abstinent. And when I got that gift of knowing that I had a solution to all three aspects of my disease was when my sponsor put me back to day one after 2 weeks of weighing and measuring my food from the Gray Sheet without exception. But I allowed somebody to take a little taste of my lunch because I didn't want to hurt their feelings and appear that I was not being nice and kind and whatever. And when I mentioned it to him the next day, he said, "You're back to day one." I said, I said, "All right." And I went home and I weighed that protein, that little bit of protein that I had allowed somebody to have, and it didn't weigh anything. And the next morning when I called him, I said, I ate the whole amount. Here I was justifying my behavior, my anorexic behavior. I was justifying it. And he said, and I said, that protein didn't weigh anything on the scale because I weighed it when I got home. And he said, the problem with you, Denise, is he said, you started sponsoring yourself. You didn't make a phone call. And number two, you didn't keep the commitment that you made to me at 5:30 in the morning that you were going to eat everything at each meal. And that includes everything, Denise. And you didn't. You shared your meal. And I was pissed off at him, but I stayed. And 2 days later, that little voice went off in my head, which I call higher power, said, he nabbed you on your anorexia, Denise. Gotcha on it. And I said, this is the program that will keep you honest because you are going to weigh and measure. If he tells you 4.0, that's what it's going to be, not 3.97. I used to nickel and dime the scale in the other rooms, or the other trick I would do is I'd tell my sponsor I couldn't finish the meal because somebody had called me on an outreach call and they desperately needed my experience, strength, and hope. And she called me on that. She said, it's a whole lot of BS you're giving me. You're in the disease, Denise. She did not nickel and dime this program. She didn't coddle me. She called me on it as it was. And that's what I loved about Gray Sheet. Gray Sheet did not, coddle me. They were loving, but they would not enable any aspect of this disease, whether it was anorexia, bulimia, or overeating. I did not go near a gym for my first years of Gray Sheet abstinence. All I was concerned was weighing and measuring my food. And I lost all my weight in 6 months. I looked great. And my sponsor suggested I get into the steps. So I fired her and got a different sponsor. And I decided I needed to date because I hadn't dated in 17 years. And I was getting older. And that's when my slip started, when I started to sponsor me in my spiritual and emotional program. And sure enough, a month after my year anniversary, when the dating stopped, I had a resentment that was unbelievable. And I didn't know how to deal with the resentment. And my attitude was, on a Friday afternoon at 5 o'clock, between 4 and 5 o'clock. I had just come home from work. I was at a 7-Eleven, and as I was standing in front of the frozen carbohydrates, I said, I can afford to have one little serving because I'm 5 pounds below my goal weight, and I'll get right back on tomorrow. And that was saying I could control the disease. I was more powerful than this disease. And a little voice again went off in my head and said, there's a telephone booth right outside and you have change in your pocket, because GreySheeters told me to carry change and phone numbers, because we didn't have cell phones back in 97. At least I didn't. And I went, no, I'll get back on tomorrow. Well, as soon as I took that one lick, I threw the carbohydrate away, and I said, and that voice said, you lost something very special, and you don't know when you're going to get it back. And that was my gift that I got that day, was the realization that I don't have any control of getting it back if I give up my abstinence. I know people will say, you know, the door is open and it's always open. We welcome you back. Can you make it back? And that resulted in a 2.5-year relapse, going to 2 phone meetings a week, because there were only two phone bridge meetings on the phone in 1998. And it was crazy. There were no moderators. It was wild in 1998. And because of the development of our intergroup and everything, they got safer, and it was more comfortable. And in that period of time, though, I did a geographic. I moved to an outpost from a live Grey Sheet community. And the only thing that kept me any bit of sanity was AA meetings, because I got 12-stepped into AA the same time I got 12-stepped into Grey Sheet, because when the food and the anorexia stopped working, I jumped into alcohol. I didn't have the DUIs, and I wasn't put in jail, but it was coming down the pike because I had been on a dry drunk and using the food. And after a year of that, I was ready to start drinking, not where I left off, but I was going to make up for lost time. So I got a Grey Sheet sponsor after 2.5 years. She was not my warm and fuzzy little spiritual lady. She was a lady out of Boston, and our conversation, but what she had was 16 years of back-to-back Grey Sheet abstinence. And she had the time. She was available at 5:30 in the morning, and I had to be in the OR by 6. She was available at 5:30 in the morning for me to give me her food. And her voice was, let me have your food. That was it. She didn't want to know about anything else. She didn't want to know that I was having trouble with the docs in the OR. None of that. Tell me you're going to weigh and measure your food. And if there's a problem, you have phone numbers if you can't reach me, because she sponsored other ladies. And she was working, and she also was working on her own recovery. So I had to get a really good toolbox so that I could always be in touch with a Grey Sheeter. And God bless her, she sponsored me through 6 weeks of vertigo, where I was dizzy and nauseous 7 days a week for a total of 6 weeks. I even slept in dizziness. And she told me exactly what to eat from the Grey Sheet. And she got me through 2 weeks in ICU when some spine surgery was botched a little bit 5 years ago. The surgery wasn't botched, but they accidentally perforated my colon unintentionally. She got me through that. She got me through, not having a relationship with my sister. She got me through a 3-year malpractice suit that I was involved in. And all she kept saying was, weigh and measure your food, don't eat no matter what. Get to your meetings, be of service, make your outreach calls. That was her message, very strong. And she said, if you do that, you'll be okay. And I called other old timers in the Boston community, and they said the exact same instructions. Weigh and measure your food, don't eat no matter what, get to your meetings, blah, blah, blah. And I've continued to do that for the last 17 years. And I've continued to age. I'm going to be turning 70 next month. And Grey Sheet didn't tell me that I wouldn't have to possibly be on medication as I got older. God bless an old timer down in Austin, Texas, when I went to a retreat down there. She said across the lunch table, Grey Sheet didn't promise me that I wouldn't have to take blood pressure pills when I got older and turned 65. And she's got close to 40 years of abstinence on the Grey Sheet. Thank you. And I never forgot that. I don't remember anything from that retreat except what she told me across the dinner table. So I figured I wasn't unique. My brother died, I think, from this disease. He was morbidly obese, which led to diabetes, which led to kidney failure, which he lost 100 pounds when he went into kidney failure, but not before the damage had been done. And this past October, he went into the hospital for the last time. And it was a very ugly death of 6 weeks, and being in ICU and being shocked and all this other crap that went on. And I just kept calling my sponsor with my food and saying, you know, they're not asking me for my advice, his family. And my sponsor said, no, Denise, you're not part of their process. And I had to accept that and weigh and measure my food. She said, they're going through a process and you're going through yours. And, you know, I was very grateful, and my meetings got increased. I was sharing more at my live AA meetings, making more outreach calls, and weighing and measuring my food. And some days my fruit was a pound. The fruit that's on the gray sheet that grows on trees. Sometimes I said, you know what? I need a pound of that fruit committed. And I'd tell my sponsor, I said, I'm having a 16-ounce blah, blah, blah. And she would say, well, enjoy it. And, you know, it starts with the food. It is about the food. It ends with the food. And I've had peace at my meals. Sometimes I don't feel like eating them, and I don't feel like finishing them because my disease will say, oh, it's too much. And I'll go, no, it isn't, Denise. You committed it. You wrote it down. Yes, I write it down on a piece of paper in a book so I don't forget it. If I'm mixing the proteins around, I make sure my math is okay and I check it off. And if I have a little slip or I drop something on the counter, pick up the phone, Denise, call somebody, turn over the drop to somebody. And I'll close by saying my funniest mishap was when I had thumb surgery and my hand was in a cast, semi-cast, and I was eating my dinner and I happened to look down my shirt and there was a piece of lettuce there. And I wasn't sure whether it was from dinner or lunch. I went, pick up the phone, Denise, and I called my GreySheeter friend in Kansas City. And I said, I got a food emergency. She said, go for it. And I said, there's a piece of lettuce in my bra, and I'm not sure. And she knew I had surgery. And I said, I don't know if it's from lunch or dinner. And I could hear a little bit of a chuckle. And then she got real serious. And she said, take the lettuce out of your bra, throw it away. You just turned it over. I said, oh, okay. Thank you. Have a good one. I'm going back to my dinner. And I don't answer the phone. If I know that during a meal, I'll say, I got to get back to you in 45 minutes. I'm eating my dinner. And I even do that with my sister. And she knows I weigh and measure my food. And I'm going on a sister trip in 2 weeks to St. Augustine, Florida. She's taking me there for 2 days for my 70th birthday. And she said, which is such a gift to me, I have a couple coolers because I know you have certain foods that you eat, and I'll put them in the car for you. We'll get ice. And I went, awesome, just awesome. I'm so blessed between this program and the program of Alcoholics Anonymous and the steps that have given me a life beyond my wildest dreams. Thank you for letting me share. I pass.